Have you ever walked into a room and forgotten what you came in for? Or found yourself rereading the same paragraph in a book because your mind wandered? If that sounds familiar, I want you to know you're not alone, and you're not losing it. Our minds, just like our bodies, need movement to stay strong. The good news? That movement doesn't always come in the form of crosswords and Sudoku. Don't get me wrong, puzzles are great. But there are hobbies that can stretch your brain in even more powerful ways, especially after 60. Hobbies that challenge your memory, coordination, creativity, and focus all at once, and in ways that feel fun, not like homework. I've spoken to so many people who say they feel stuck in a routine. Maybe you've felt it too. You wake up, do the same things, watch the same shows, go to bed, and then repeat. That kind of repetition is safe, but it doesn't stimulate the brain. What we need, especially as we get older, are new experiences that light us up, that make us curious again. And today, we're going to talk about a few that can do just that. Let's start with one that surprises a lot of people. Dancing. Yes, really, dancing. You don't have to be good at it. You don't even need a partner. But moving your body to music, learning new steps, coordinating with rhythm, all of that forces your brain to work in real time. And when you combine music and movement, you're lighting up multiple areas of your brain at once: memory, balance, decision-making, and spatial awareness. I met a woman last year, Diane, 72 years old, a retired school principal, who started taking a beginner salsa class after her husband passed. At first, it was just a way to get out of the house. But after a few weeks, she said she started sleeping better. Her balance improved. She even felt sharper in conversations. What surprised her most was that learning choreography helped her remember names better, because her brain was relearning how to hold patterns. She told me, "I went for the fun, but I stayed because I could feel my mind waking up." That's the magic of movement tied to memory. Now let me tell you about another one: gardening. You might be thinking, gardening? That's for relaxing, not brain health. But hear me out. Gardening isn't just digging in the dirt. It's problem solving. It's long-term planning. It's engaging with your senses: touch, smell, even taste. Every plant has different needs, different seasons. You're constantly learning, adjusting, experimenting. That kind of engagement activates the brain's executive functions: organization, working memory, even impulse control. Plus, being outdoors helps regulate your mood and improve focus. The soil microbes you inhale while gardening have even been shown to increase serotonin levels. That's your brain's feel-good chemical. So yes, you may be planting tomatoes, but what you're really growing is resilience. A gentleman I spoke with recently, Walter, 68, started a raised garden bed during the pandemic. He said it gave him a reason to get up early, something to care for, something to learn about. He keeps a little notebook of plant notes, and when we spoke, he laughed and said, "I've never remembered this much science in my life." It became his meditation, his workout, and his memory exercise all in one. What I love most about hobbies like these is that they're so much more than time fillers. They become part of who you are. They give you new stories to tell, new people to meet, and perhaps most importantly, they remind you that growth doesn't stop at a certain age. It just changes shape. Now, there's one more hobby I want to share in this first part. One that combines creativity, skill, and a surprising amount of brain stimulation: playing a musical instrument. Before you shake your head and say, "That's not for me," hear this. You don't need to be a concert pianist. You just need to be willing to learn something new, no matter how simple. Even 5 minutes a day of playing can create new neural pathways in your brain, essentially rewiring how you process sound, memory, and emotion. I met a widower who started learning the ukulele at 74. His hands were stiff, and he struggled at first. but he said it made him feel alive again. It's like my brain has somewhere to go, he told me. He wasn't learning to perform, he was learning to explore, to play. And that's the difference. It's not about perfection, it's about presence. When we challenge our brains in new and joyful ways, we're not just protecting our memory, we're expanding it. We're creating room for new connections, new ideas, and yes, even new confidence. Because there's a quiet power in knowing you can still surprise yourself. Now that we've explored a few of these powerful, brain-boosting hobbies, ones that move your body, connect your senses, and unlock creativity, let's keep going. There's more to uncover. Now, if dancing, gardening, and picking up a musical instrument can fire up the brain in such meaningful ways, the next hobby might catch you by surprise, because it doesn't require any equipment at all. It just needs your voice. I'm talking about storytelling. Whether it's writing short stories, recording voice notes of your memories, or simply telling tales around the dinner table. Storytelling is one of the most powerful exercises for your mind. And here's why. It engages language, memory recall, emotional processing, and creativity all at once. Your brain has to reach into the past, organize thoughts, connect them in a way that makes sense, and express them clearly. And you don't need to be a writer to do it. I met a man named Joe, 81, former mechanic, who started recording a story every week for his grandkids. Not polished, not edited, just him talking into his phone, telling them about life in the 60s, his first road trip, how he met their grandma. He told me it helped him remember things he hadn't thought of in decades. It's like my brain is pulling out files from the back of the cabinet, he joked. But more than that, it gave him a sense of purpose. Because when you tell your story, you realize it matters. And when you realize that, something shifts inside. You become more alert, more aware. Because now your memories aren't just something you keep, they're something you share. And it doesn't have to be memoir style. Some people make up stories, fiction, fairy tales, adventures. That creative flow activates parts of the brain that puzzles simply don't touch. When you build a world, invent characters, or imagine outcomes, you stretch your thinking far beyond what comes next. You explore what could be, and that's where real growth happens. Now, I want to introduce you to another hobby that's both fun and deeply mentally stimulating. Learning a new language. Yes, even after 60. I know some people might say, what's the point? Or, my memory isn't what it used to be. But that's exactly why it's powerful. Learning a new language forces your brain to make entirely new connections. It's like giving your brain a gym membership, but for words. And it doesn't have to be French or Mandarin. You could learn basic sign language, or phrases in Italian if you've always dreamed of visiting. Even just learning 10 new words a week, or watching foreign films with subtitles, creates stimulation. Why? Because your brain is decoding, translating, recognizing patterns. Every minute you engage, you're literally building your cognitive reserve. I remember speaking to a woman named Arlene, 67, who started learning Spanish through an app just because her new neighbors spoke it. She didn't plan to be fluent. She just wanted to say hello, ask how they were doing, maybe make them feel more welcome. But after a few months, she noticed something else. Her memory was sharper. Her ability to concentrate during conversations improved, and her confidence soared. She said, "I'm not just learning words, I'm learning how to learn again." And that's the beauty of it. Learning a language isn't about being perfect. It's about showing your brain that you're still curious, still open, still capable. Now, I know by this point you might be thinking, okay, this sounds great, but how do I find time for any of this? The answer is simpler than you might expect. You don't need to add a whole new routine to your life. You just need to swap some passive time, maybe 30 minutes of scrolling or background TV, for something that asks your mind to engage. Not aggressively, just attentively and joyfully. That's the key. Joy. Because when something feels like a chore, we drop it fast. But when something brings us laughter, peace, challenge, or pride, We make space for it. We protect it. And we return to it. So whether it's dancing in your living room, digging in the garden, picking up a ukulele, telling a story, or learning a few words in a new language, what matters most is how it makes you feel. Not only in the moment, but afterward. Do you feel more alive, more connected, more curious? Because those feelings, that sense of mental energy, of being awake, that's what keeps the mind sharp. That's what puzzles alone can't give you. They challenge your memory, yes. But these hobbies, they challenge your identity. They remind you that no matter what age you are, you're still becoming something new. And that is what keeps the mind young. Now that we've stirred the creative side of your brain and woken up some new possibilities, let's explore one more hobby, perhaps the most underrated of all, and discover how it can change the way you think every single day. There's something deeply underrated about the quietness of observation, how it sharpens us without needing a test or a timer. And that brings us to the fifth and final hobby, birdwatching. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, birdwatching? Really? Stay with me. Birdwatching isn't just sitting on a bench with binoculars. It's training your brain to notice patterns, recall sounds, distinguish shapes, and engage in gentle, consistent awareness. It asks your brain to do something very few modern distractions ask of us. Pay attention. Not to a screen, not to a headline, but to the world right in front of us. Let me tell you about Henry. Henry is 74, retired school principal, never thought of himself as particularly outdoorsy. But one spring morning, his daughter gave him a bird guide and a pair of binoculars. Kind of a joke, really. He was recovering from a small stroke, couldn't move much, felt foggy most days. But he started sitting near the window each morning watching the feeders. At first, he just saw little brown birds. But over time, he noticed small differences. The reddish blush on the chest of a finch, the hopping pattern of a sparrow, the sharp sound of a chickadee's call. He began writing them down, keeping a list. And then one day he realized he'd sat at the window for almost an hour, completely present, completely focused. It wasn't just birdwatching, it was meditation, memory, pattern recognition, and most importantly, joy. Henry told me something I've never forgotten. He said, "At first I was watching the birds. Now I think they're teaching me how to be alive again." It's a hobby that invites you to slow down, to listen more than speak, to look for beauty in subtlety. And when your mind is asked to observe, it grows more alert. Because observation is a skill that gets better the more you use it. And it's one that builds both patience and clarity, two things that tend to drift as we age if we're not careful. What's even more wonderful about birdwatching is that it requires almost nothing. No gym shoes, no special equipment, not even a backyard. Just a willingness to be still and curious. Now that we've explored 5 unique hobbies, dancing, gardening, music, storytelling, language learning, and yes, even birdwatching, you might be wondering, what's the secret thread tying all of these together? What makes them better than puzzles? The answer is this: engagement. Each of these hobbies doesn't just test one part of your mind. They connect multiple areas at once. Emotion, memory, physical movement, social connection, and creative exploration. They require you to be in the moment, to respond, to express, to stretch, just a little beyond your comfort zone. And that's where real brain change happens, in the stretch. You don't need to master any of these. You don't need to become a pro dancer or fluent in 5 languages. What you need is to find something that lights you up, that nudges your mind awake, that gets you just curious enough to keep going. Because here's the truth. After 60, your brain is still capable of extraordinary growth. Science backs this up. Neuroplasticity doesn't stop when you retire. It simply waits for you to give it a reason to show up. and joy is a powerful reason. So maybe today you dust off that old keyboard. Maybe you sit by the window with a notebook and start describing the sounds you hear. Maybe you sign up for a local gardening class, or simply ask your neighbor what that plant in their yard is called. Each of those small actions tells your brain, we're still learning, we're still growing, we're still here. And in a world that often tells us the opposite, that aging is decline, that slowing down is the end, you get to write a different story. You get to prove that the best kind of sharp isn't found in how quickly you finish a puzzle. It's in how richly you experience your life. Now, as we round out this journey, let's take a moment to breathe it all in. Not as a checklist, not as pressure, but as an invitation. Because all of these hobbies are just doorways. And the mind? The mind is the house you get to keep unlocking, one joyful habit at a time. There's a moment after the excitement fades where you sit quietly with the question, will I actually do this? You've heard the suggestions, the stories, the benefits, but the truth is, it's easier to nod along than it is to begin. Because beginning anything after 60, whether it's a hobby, a friendship, or a new chapter, can feel heavier than it used to. But here's the twist. It also means more. That first dance step, it's not just movement. It's reclaiming a sense of play. That first time your fingers stumble through a piano chord, that's not failure. That's brain growth in real time. The first time you mispronounce a word in a new language and laugh at yourself instead of shrinking, that's resilience. And those are things worth celebrating. Let's take a breath here together. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to impress anyone. You just need to be willing to try, to show up, to meet yourself where you are. Let's imagine this together. You start each morning with something small, watering a basil plant on your windowsill, humming along to a tune you once knew, scribbling a few words about your childhood. There's no rush, no pressure, just space. Space for your brain to come alive, one moment at a time. The beauty of these 5 hobbies isn't that they're difficult, it's that they're sustainable. They grow with you. Gardening gets easier as you understand your soil. Dancing becomes more joyful when you stop chasing perfection. Storytelling turns richer when you realize every wrinkle has a tale. Language learning teaches patience. And birdwatching? It turns silence into a symphony. These hobbies don't ask for your past strength. They invite your present attention, and in return, they offer a sharper, calmer, more joyful mind. That's the real promise here. Not that you'll avoid every slip or forgetful moment, but that you'll stay in motion, mentally and emotionally, in ways that feel personal and possible. The science agrees. Active minds age more gracefully. People who continue to learn, to feel inspired, to use their creativity, these are the people who not only retain memory longer, but also report feeling better, more confident, more connected, more alive. And isn't that the point? Let's also talk for a second about connection. Because as powerful as puzzles may be, they're often solitary. But most of the hobbies we've explored invite community. They give you stories to share, laughter to exchange, even gentle accountability to keep going. Imagine joining a weekly dance class with a few neighbors, or starting a language group that meets over coffee, or hosting a mini birdwatching club from your front porch. These aren't just hobbies, they're bridges. To others, to joy, to your younger self. And in a world that sometimes forgets to ask older adults, what do you love? This is your answer. You get to fall in love again, with discovery, with creation, with your own story. Before we close, I want to remind you of something simple and powerful. Your brain wants to thrive. It doesn't care if you're 61 or 91, it just needs a reason, a challenge, a spark, and you can give it that. Right now. Try one new thing this week. Not for anyone else, just for you. Start small. Laugh when it feels clumsy. Keep going anyway. Because the sharpest minds are rarely the ones that know all the answers. They're the ones still asking questions. So here's to you, the learner, the explorer, the storyteller, the grower, the observer. May your mind be full, your heart be light, and your days be colored with curiosity. And if this video inspired you in any way, I'd love to hear what you're thinking of trying. Drop a comment below. Tell us your favorite hobby, or the one you're nervous to begin. Let's cheer each other on. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you want more uplifting, practical ideas for living your best life after 60. You've earned joy. You've earned growth. And no matter what age you are, your mind is still beautifully yours to shape. Here's to the next chapter. Here's to a sharper, happier you.